Hi, and welcome to Interact's Creator Stories podcast. Interact is the easiest way to convert curious people into loyal and happy customers by using a lead generating quiz. On Creator Stories, we get to hear the entrepreneur's journey. This is a podcast about how those creators took their knowledge and experiences to carve out a place in the world, owned what they know is special about themselves, and turned it into a successful company. Today, we get to meet Christal Allen-Harrahil, a life and relationship coach for women in real estate. She helps her clients stop the petty fights with their partners and get back to feeling like they did when they were first dating. She empowers women to create fulfilling relationships right now through her signature ABC process: awareness, becoming, and change. She is an accomplished businesswoman and certified coach with a relatable, down-to-earth vibe that makes you feel safe and cared for. All right, let's get started. Hi, guys, and welcome back to Interact's Creator Stories podcast. As always, I'm so excited to be with you. I'm your host, Jessamine Solana, and with me today, I have Christal Allen-Harrahil. Christal, thank you so much for hopping on.
You're so welcome, Jessamine. I'm excited to just have this chat with you.
I know. And for those of you who are listening, we've had to reschedule this recording 6 times. And we're finally here. So we're super excited to get this story out. I know when I talked to you last year, actually, I was like, this is going to be a good episode. So I'm really excited.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
So people did get your more formal bio before us hopping on to record, but can you just kind of, in your own words, go a little bit more deeper into who you are, what you do, and the customers that you serve?
Thank you. Yes, I am a Las Vegas native. And prior to starting as an entrepreneur, I was actually in the higher education sector for about 10 years. And I thought that that was going to be like my thing. I was going to become a dean, be VP, be president of a university one day. And really, in like those last probably 3 or 4 years in higher ed, I really realized that like my ladder was leaning on the wrong building, right? Like that wasn't my climb that I was meant to do. And so I think what's kind of nice about my journey is that I actually didn't have any direct examples around me to start in business. And so when you hear someone say, like, well, I don't have anything special about me, or I don't know how to do this or that, so how can I start a business? That kind of was me. And so I found the basic level things that I could put out there as a service just to get my feet wet. And it really has taken me so far. And so the first like iteration of my business, I was a personal concierge. So I would literally be taking kids to ballet practice, taking dry cleaning, because I'm thinking like, yeah, I don't have some of these skills like marketing or website design, but I'm responsible and I'm trustworthy. So let me just go for it. And from there, since I was in the car a lot, I started listening to podcasts. And I remember the first podcast that I listened to was John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. And he would mention his VA, his virtual assistant, like frequently. And I'm like, who is this person? Right. And how are they working from home? And I did a little research and I was like, you know what? I could actually easily transition kind of what I'm doing now to an online space. And so one of my in-person clients who I was doing concierge for, it just so happened that he needed some online like admin support. And that really is how my journey as like an online business owner began, as a VA, general VA. And then I niched down to specialize in real estate as a VA. And then over the years, right, I transitioned to where I am now as a life and relationship coach for women in real estate. So a lot happened between, right, that story that I just shared. But I really just want your listeners to know that there is no right or wrong way to start. There is no perfect way to do it. It's just how you do it, and just don't give up.
Yeah, I love how it seemed sort of like a roller coaster. Like, how did you get from point A to point B? And I know you said that there's stuff in between there, but it really is just this sort of like trial and error, try
Yeah.
something, do I like it, do I not like it, and reassessing.
Mhm.
And something, and I feel like you might relate to this because something that I've heard people say a lot is, they took too long to sort of make that switch when they knew like it wasn't for them, or they knew like what they were doing wasn't what they wanted to be doing, and they felt like they wish they could have like started a little earlier.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. And especially when and you'll notice this even after you start your business. Like if you don't have, for lack of better words, the support or community of people around you who even understand like your aspirations, sometimes if you allow it to be, that can be challenging, right? Because you're talking about stuff that no one has any idea, what you're talking about, or they're just not familiar with that type of thing. And so it has the potential to be lonely. And so that's why it's really important to,
Mm-hmm.
just remember that like those answers are within you, and listen to your intuition, listen to your gut. Like, when you're not in alignment. And, when you start feeling that, you know, I think it's helpful to just start exploring, just get curious. And in
Right.
doing so, like what you need to do will be revealed. I'm a big believer in that.
I love that. It's sort of like a fate situation.
Absolutely.
I love that. So
Yeah.
let's jump into that little bit where you went from real estate into life and relationship coaching. What was that transition?
Yeah, so for 7 years, my business had three iterations in those 7 years. So I was general VA, then niche down into real estate as a VA. And then I also started business coaching, and I loved that. And so I was like, okay, this is definitely something that I want to do more of, because I love teaching and I love encouraging others that they can do it, because
Mhm.
sometimes it's almost like we do need someone to believe in us until we can catch up with that same belief in ourselves.
Right.
And thereafter, I enrolled actually last year. So 2021, I enrolled in a 6-month life coach certification program where I, certified and went through really rigorous training that really changed the trajectory, I feel like, of my business, because I knew that I wanted to focus on relationships after going through that program, but I wanted to keep some familiarity with my niche. So I decided to keep real estate. So relationship coaching for women in real estate. But I love the business coaching, and I love talking business any day, trust me. But I also realized that the relationship coaching is something that I could see myself doing literally for like until I'm 90, right? Like
Right.
for what is retirement, right? Like I don't even think of that like traditionally. Like this after going through the training and working with like starting working with clients,
Mhm.
and even being reflective on my own journey, right, in relationships and in my marriage. I just knew that this was something that I can just take this as a marathon. Like I'm so excited about this chapter.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And when you say relationships, or do you mean like more personal relationships, or does it have like sort of a business, like, I don't know the word that I'm thinking of,
No, it's okay. I
like
appreciate that
essence,
question.
essence in
Yeah.
there? Essence.
I appreciate that question. So the focus is primarily on with your partner, right? So with romantic relationships, but the beautiful thing about this work is doing this work, you intend work on the essentially work on the relationship with yourself, and your partner benefits from that, and so does every other relationship. So
I love that.
so it is intended for your romantic relationship with your spouse or your partner, but it's such a ripple effect in the benefits.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in this work that it sounds like it gets pretty deep, probably. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
assuming.
Yes.
But I'm sure it gets really deep and probably pretty heavy. Like, how do you kind of decompress at the end of the
Mhm.
day when you're like, wow, that I'm sure like sometimes you're like, that was a lot for today.
Yeah. Yeah, that is something that I think is probably overlooked. When you're in a position, whether you're a W-2 9 to 5er or you have your
Mhm.
own business, you and when you if you're in a position where you're pouring into others, you have to make sure you do the same thing for yourself, right? Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And I walk the walk. I have a coach, right? So
I love
just
that.
like I encourage, people to come get coach, get help. I have someone where I can just kind of run things by. I can, maybe look back at a tough session and evaluate it, or just kind of let my emotions come out about it, that type of thing. And so, in addition to that, just having my own like mental management practice where I do self coaching, where I just write down some of the thoughts that I'm having, or maybe I challenge some beliefs that I have, discovered or coming up and maybe hindering me from what I want to do, and I want to get more curious about why I'm doing that. And
Mhm.
so and look, and that combination of things happen, but it doesn't look perfect, right? It's just um it's making it a point, however, to make time to have that self-care and just take care of like your beautiful brain, because it is a powerful tool.
I love that. I feel like that might be the first time I ever asked that question because I've interviewed a couple coaches
Good.
before, but I never thought of like, you know, you are giving advice all day and but how do you take care of yourself at the end of it? If I feel like we're our worst sort of kind of I don't want to say critic, but in a like the same idea of like you have to practice what you preach, but we don't always do it. And I
Hmm.
love that you do that. You're like, if I'm going to take care of other people, I also need that in my
Yes.
practice. I
I'm
also need
so happy you brought that question to the table, because it really is important.
Yeah, and so I've been doing coaching through Interact for the past, I
Mm.
think, like since 2020, so almost 2 years. I think I started in like the middle of it. But it's amazing how much like just processing feelings and thoughts that come out of your day
Yeah.
that you feel like people would judge you for.
Yes.
But in this like
Mhm.
really safe space, you're able to just say what you feel and then kind of put the pieces together of why do I feel that way?
Yes.
How can I sort of change the way I think and rewire my brain so when it comes up again, it's not the same sort of damaging feelings that it is right now as it's happening.
Yes, you said that so beautifully. And I love that that's something that Interact is committed to, offering as, like a resource or a benefit. I think that is such a wonderful example to set as a
Oh
company,
yeah.
like culture.
It's
Yeah.
so nice. I feel so bad when I talk to people about how much coaching I get because they not everybody offers it, but yeah, like
Yeah.
it's very much a great opportunity in order to actually grow and like continue doing this, like doing things like this,
Mhm.
having conversations like this and sort of understanding that. But
Yeah.
that does kind of bring me to, you know, as you're working with a coach, let's say,
Mhm.
right? And you're trying to process and you're like, okay, this is happening in my business. At what point does that like actually change things in your business or
Mhm.
maybe the way you do things? Or are you ever thinking, oh, I should implement that or I shouldn't implement that? And at what point do you say, no, I know which way I want to take this and that was great advice, but I'm not going to do it right now?
Mm. Yeah, no, I love that you are asking that. I think just kind of like And it's interesting that this comes up because I was just kind of having some honest conversations with myself, myself that I can be an easy sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I am looking at making changes in my business and many times looking to someone in the online space to maybe help me with that, and typically it'll be someone that I've followed for a while or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or just someone that I really resonate with. But I've learned that I'm not too proud. So it was kind of harder for me to like come to that realization that I am an easy sell and I get excited about learning. But as an entrepreneur, it really is important to balance consuming with creating, right? We can't just stay
Mm.
in consumption mode or it's fun. Trust me, I get it. I love it. Buying all the courses, all the things. But we do have to balance that with actually getting our unique voice and value out into the online space, out into the marketplace. And so when I'm thinking about making changes in my business, it now looks like intentional conversations with myself. And I love to use two question filters. What are my reasons? And do I
Mhm.
like them?
Ooh, I love
And
that.
yes, and that helps me, that challenges that default person, like the default in me that just wants to be like, yes, let's sign up. So at least I have a moment where I'm taking a break and I'm putting my decisions through those question filters. So that way I'm a little bit more clear on why it is that I'm doing this. And that challenges that easy sell within me.
I love that. I
Mhm.
don't worry, I'm also an easy sell. I hate it.
I know. I was like, yeah, in some ways that may not be the best thing.
For me, it's mostly like material things. Like I can
Okay.
walk into a store and I will come out buying all of it.
Yeah.
No one target me after hearing that, okay? But in when you have to think about your actual business, like it has to still run. Like you still
Yeah.
have to make money.
Mhm.
Yes, you have to spend some money in
Right.
order to put like processes and stuff in place. But yeah, I can see how that's super hard if you see, and especially online, there's
Yes.
get this course and you'll do this, or take my
Yep.
my challenge and you'll increase your sales by x%
Yes.
and it's everywhere.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm wondering from that is, you did say you do the two question filter, but say
Mhm.
you're really looking at stuff and you're like, okay, I want this one, I want this one. How do you assess whether it actually will help increase your growth for your
Mm.
business?
You know, I this question is perfect because I recently made a decision to join a mastermind, right? And after I did it, because I've been having these conversations with myself about challenging that default version of me that can do things like being an easy sell, that type of thing. And so for the first time ever, really, because I get so excited when I'm signing up for things and I do the work. So that makes me happy. But for the first time ever, I had buyer's remorse
Wow.
after joining this mastermind. And so to answer your question, what I did was just come from a place of compassion and like remind myself that this kind of behavior in me that has both also helped me get to where I am, and I also am wanting to challenge it a little bit and make sure that I'm just really clear on why I'm doing it from now on. So what I'm telling myself is that this will be the last default purchase that I ever make, and I am going to work the crap out of this program, right? And really make the most of it and really show up like I never have before. Because although I truly believe it's going to be an amazing program, I didn't really run myself through those question filters before doing it. And so I love that you're even asking this because the timing is perfect. Like this literally happened a week ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am 100% on the same boat with you as that. And you know what's the worst about it is I tell myself if I pay for it, I might be
Mhm.
more incentivized to actually
Mm,
follow through because I'll be thinking about like, well, I bought it,
yes.
but it never works out that way for me. So
Mm,
you don't know how
okay.
many times I've done that and it did not work out that way. But
Yes. No, I hear you. And be reminded too that that is I think it's helpful to be have compassion with ourselves because it's so easy for us to beat ourselves up, right? Like,
right.
oh, I bought that and I didn't finish it. Oh, I bought that and I really didn't give my all to that or what have you. And so in the process of maybe deciding to do things differently, have compassion with that version of yourself and just know that, you probably have been like operating that way, right? Maybe for a
Mhm.
while. And so it takes some time to change those habits. And so I think that that's always a really important reminder to make change from a place of curiosity and compassion with yourself instead of like judging yourself,
Mhm.
beating yourself up about why I did that and oh, now I have debt or whatever that is. Yeah.
That was so well said. I agree.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
that. Something that just came to mind as we were talking was so you work on life and relationship coaching and you also have an element in real estate.
Mhm.
How do you make the switch, depending on the day? Because you're your own boss, you can make your
Mhm.
hours, but I guess I love asking this because I'm the type of person where I need to make the effort to make the switch, if that makes sense. Like
Mm.
I have to put energy into that. But I know people who are just like, yeah, I do this for this hour, and then the next hour I can do that. My coach had suggested one time if you're waiting for someone on a call to work on a project, and I was like, there's no way. I can't
Mhm.
make that switch. But I'm curious, like having the two businesses, how do you make that switch on a daily basis?
Well, you know what? I love to think of it as that it's all really together. It like, for example, the business coaching that I was doing in real estate, I pretty much transitioned that business to the point where I have the courses that are still available on Evergreen because it's a niche within real estate that a lot of people look for help in. And there's not a lot of information like tools on how to do that kind of work. And so I keep that available, but I actually no longer coach in regards to
One
the
on one.
business. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the coaching that I do now is life and relationships. And so that was intentional because it's almost like trying to think about like you're saying here, almost trying to think about even though it's the same niche, like serving two sides, right, to that niche. And not that I couldn't because I loved it all, but I just felt that this was what I wanted to focus on for simplicity's sake,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like as a business owner, keeping things simple is so important to me now, especially. It wasn't always, but now it definitely is. So yeah, that's how I run the business now. I just focus on the life and relationship coaching and the anything regarding the courses is basically just managing any questions that may come in
Mm-hmm.
about maybe someone who purchased the course or something like that. So it's very back end, that part of those courses.
No, thank you for sharing that because I've seen other people have multiple businesses, but
Mhm.
on sort of the face of it online, it seems like, oh, I'm doing it all.
Yeah.
And my number one question all the time is how does anyone have the time in the
Yeah.
day. I mean, and it's also about what you prioritize, but I'm
Hmm.
always curious how people do too. And I'm sure there are people who coach both of their businesses or however
Yeah.
many they have, but I just love kind of seeing how to work the two. And yeah,
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that
Of course.
and being
Yeah.
transparent about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely, if I feel too like boxed in, I I I like rebel within myself, right? It's so interesting. And
I
so
know exactly what you're
do
saying.
you hear what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes.
And so I have to keep things simple, especially as the mom of like a young family. Like, so I have a toddler and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
the love of my life and he takes a lot of energy. And so, I like to think about all of that, that the business is a part of my life. It's a spoke in the wheel, right? It's not the entire thing. And so I like to keep all of that in mind. And I knew that if I tried to really kind of split my focus and keep coaching on both, that I could do it, but it would just, again, going back to the question filters, why? Why would
Mhm.
I do it? Do I think I would need to do that? And do I like my reasons? And I just decided to focus on the relationships.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I think it's really big to sort of, I think my main takeaway right now is that two question filter that you have for yourself. Cause I think something that I don't do enough is checking
Mhm.
in every once in a
Yeah.
while and seeing like, okay, what purpose is this serving
Hmm.
sort of a sense, and how is this going to improve or
Yes.
positively affect the rest of my day or the rest of my month or the rest of this project, etc.
Yes. Yeah, it really is helpful. And for those of those listeners who can relate to maybe operating from a place of default, I think that can be a great first step, right? Just take a deep breath and ask those two questions. And you can apply this to anything. Like maybe you're a people pleaser and you get a text from someone who's always asking you to do something and you
Mm.
end up usually saying like yes when that really is your no. Take a deep breath before you reply to that text and like why am I doing this? Like what are my reasons if I were to say yes? What are my reasons if I just say no? What are my reasons? Do I like them? And even having those two questions to like check in with yourself, it reduces the mind chatter, the brain chatter on the other end of making that decision, right? Like, oh, did I do the right thing? Or oh, I shouldn't have done that. Not to say that it goes away, but it does reduce it when you've spent some time on the front end with yourself and just trying to, asking why and just being truthful with yourself.
Right. I love
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Ah, I love that. Well, Christal, thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us. And after 6 attempts, still getting on a call with me.
I have had the best conversation. Think you're a great host and
Oh,
thank you.
thank
You're a
you.
great interviewer. So really, really polished questions. I love this chat. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Not to toot my own horn, but I did not write any of these down. So
That's right. We talked. She did not.
yeah. But I do like to close out with two last questions. I ask everybody, but if you're up for it, I'm
Let's
ready.
do it.
Okay. So, second
Mhm.
to last question, what are three things most people would not know about you?
So the first would be that um, on my bucket list is to drive an 18 wheeler. I think that's something
Oh,
that most people would not know about me. Um, I got a ticket for having my music up too loud when I was 21.
oh,
Most
wow.
people definitely, especially if you see me in person, they're like, that doesn't go together. And
That's
then
so
the
funny.
third probably is I love I love watching the Golden Girls show, the reruns of the Golden
Wow.
Girls. Love that show. I grew up on it. I was raised with my grandparents, and so love that show.
I feel like I've definitely seen it on TV, but I was
Mhm.
so young when it was, when we all still had cable at the time.
Yeah.
Like, unheard of now. But yeah, oh my gosh, like I feel like now it's just become more of memes for me, which
Yes.
like it's weird how just sort of like pop culture does that. And,
Yes.
depending on your generation, like for some people, it's no, this is a show that I grew up with, I watched. And for me, it's I've seen it online a lot
Yes.
more than I've probably seen it on TV.
I
So
know. That's
crazy.
so amazing. It is. It
So
is.
crazy. Okay, my last question for you, which I feel like you're gonna have a great answer for based off of our
Mhm.
episode, but what is a single piece of advice that you would give to yourself at the start of it all?
Mm. It would definitely be everything will happen in the right time, and value and nurture relationships, right? I think that's probably the two biggest things I would remind myself of. Like, don't be in a rush and, allow things to happen. Or, when things happen, always find like the lesson in it, even if it didn't go your way. And then relationships are so important.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And before I forget, please tell everyone where they can find you online.
Thank you. You can find me on my website, christalallen.com. That's CHRISTALALLEN.com. And then in regards to social media, Instagram at Life Coach Christal, or you can also find me on LinkedIn at Christal Allen-Harrahil.
Perfect. And we will link that for you guys in the show notes. So definitely check Christal out. And once again, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.